Hi there and welcome back to the channel. My name is Inessa and I am an indie author based in Toronto, Canada, and I write under the pen name of A.N. Sage. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my absolute favorite and most go-to books on the craft of writing, and books that have really helped me along the way get better at what it is that I do. And these are not sponsored, obviously, in any way. These are just the books that I highly recommend to anyone starting out or anyone who's full on in their career because they are incredibly useful and can offer a fresh perspective, both technically and creatively, for your craft. So stick around and let's get some books out there. So today we are going to be talking about books. Of course, if you are a writer, books come with the territory. You have to read a lot to write a lot. So today I am going to be talking about some of those particular books that are incredibly useful for getting your craft better and kind of nailing down what it is that you need help with and then pushing through it. I reference these quite a bit when I am writing. To this day, despite having like 11 books out, I think, at this point and counting. So they are very, very useful, all in very different ways too. Some are specific to the creative part of the craft, and some are more specific to the actual technical side of writing. But before we get into it, I have a quick little announcement. Considering we're in Nano month, and I did end up finishing up Nano early, believe it or not. I'm shocked as heck. But I ended up finishing with about just over 64,000 words. And today's Wednesday when I'm filming this, and I finished yesterday the first draft. I'm going through some of the edits right now. And if you haven't seen what my process is like, I do have a video on that, and I'll link that just somewhere up here. It'll pop up. But I'm going through the edits, so I'll probably push that manuscript up to about like 68 to 70,000 words in total by the end of it. But that's where we're sitting at right now. And I'm really, really happy that I got it done so incredibly fast. I was absolutely shocked. I'm back on track, back on schedule, which is absolutely wonderful. So today, as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about books on craft. And these are some of my favorite books that I really enjoy referencing and reading over and over again. Some of them I've read like 5 or 6 times already, and I'm just always reading them again. There's no rhyme or reason to how we're going to do this. I just have a big pile next to me, so I'm going to pull one out. I think they're right now stacked like smallest to biggest as far as circumference goes. So that's where we're in right now. So the first one we have here is the Elements of Style. So that is it right here. It's by Strunk and White, and I will link all of these down below. I'll put the Amazon link, I believe. Yeah, I think all of these you can get on Amazon in paperbacks, or some of them I think are digital as well. So this one here, it's teeny tiny, as you can see, like the smallest little book, but there is so much in here. It seriously packs a punch. It's like, I don't know, look at this, like it's all this technical stuff, and I really love this. I do have a background in medical technical writing, and this reminds me quite a bit of it. You can see how I've highlighted some passages here, but it's very similar in that, and it just literally gives you the technical breakdown of grammar. So there's dialogue tags, how to use them, like anything, like how to structure a paragraph. It seems like it's very small, but the rules of the usage of language that you would get out of this is absolutely invaluable. And I highly recommend this, especially if you're doing any kind of self-editing, or you just want to realize what it is to put proper grammar on the page. So this is wonderful. The second book we're going to look at, actually, let's do this one because it's very similar. So this is by Rennie Brown and Dave King, and it's called Self-Editing for Fiction Writers. Very self-explanatory. This book teaches you how you should self-edit your manuscripts. It's very detailed. It's very interesting. There's a lot of examples here, so you can really see structurally what's wrong, what's right. And I find that really works for the way that my brain functions. And it is, I mean, even the subtitle, How to Edit Yourself into Print, it literally takes, it helps you take your very rough, very like brain vomit first draft or manuscript and turn it into something that is closer to a properly finished print manuscript. This is not to say that if you read this book and you go through your stuff, you still don't need an editor. An editor is very important for things not just like grammar and punctuation and all of that, but they help you figure out if there's a lot of repetition happening, if there's words that you're leaning on too much, if there's weak paragraphs. And my editor a lot of the time will catch plot holes that I miss, so they almost function like beta readers. And so don't skip the editor if you can help it. However, if you want to give your editor an easier time with your manuscript, or just in general want to not have a manuscript that's a huge mess, then definitely read this book and follow what it says here, because it's very, very useful for that. The next one on this pile is Strangers to Superfans by David Gaughran. So I think I said his name right. Sorry. Russian, sorry, don't know these names. So not that my actual name, that's not a pen name, is any better, but good luck pronouncing that. But yeah, so this one is a marketing guide. So David actually has a few other books. I believe he has one on BookBub ads on Amazon. I think it's called Amazon Decoded. There's one on building a platform as an author. I do have all the other ones, but I have them on my Kindle. But this one is really good if you are starting out and you are trying to get some kind of community around your authorship. It's like, I really loved it. It's a fast read. He's a funny guy, so it's really, really full of humor, and it'll keep the pages turning. Again, not a very large book, but everything in here, I mean, there's stuff in here that is self-explanatory, the stuff that you already knew, but just to read it again sparks ideas of what you should do to give back to your community, to your readers, how to build that community, and how to have those readers that absolutely cannot put down your book and want more and more and more, and they want to interact with you and become like almost like online friends, really. So that's David's book. It's great. And then this one, I'm sure you've seen all over the internet. There's a million videos on it, but I figured I'd put it in here anyways. This is Save the Cat, Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. It's based on the Save the Cat method for screenwriting. And what Jessica did was she actually broke it down in order to use the same beats that you would have in a screenwriting play for a book. As you can see, I've kind of labeled it off for myself here from when I first read this and I started implementing what's in here, because I was just using a very basic 3-act plot structure before for my plotting. As we've talked about, I am very, very obsessed with plotting. So any kind of new ideas for that was really useful. And I found while this is similar to a lot of things that are out there, I really enjoyed some parts in here, and they were very helpful to kind of shed some light on some of the beats that I might have been missing, or beats that I was using but not using them in the correct place to kind of create the exact pace and emotion that I wanted. So if you are new to the craft of writing, this is a hell of a read. It's a little bit larger than the other books I've shown so far, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, it's very interesting how much better the pacing of your book will be if you just follow this. I mean, you don't have to follow it to a T. I no longer do. I've kind of stolen bits and pieces from it and figured out my own plotting structure. But if you don't have a plotting structure of your own, you're wondering and you want to get into plotting, I definitely recommend this one. So the next one that we'll do is this one, and it's called Creating Character Arcs by K.M. Whalen. This is an absolutely amazing book. I could not recommend this book enough. If you're writing literally any kind of story that has people, I know that there's like a lot of difference that people point out between like plot driven books and character driven books, but in all honesty, every single one of your books should really have both. You could be a bit heavier on one side than the other, but your character should always be fully developed. And if you haven't developed arcs for your characters yet, I definitely recommend starting. It'll make them more well-rounded. It'll make you know exactly how they behave, what they would do. I don't know if I have these moments sometimes where I'd be reading a book, I'm really into it, and then something happens in the plot and the character reacts in a way that doesn't make sense for the character. And I feel as a reader, I've read so much of it, I'm like, no, that's not what they would do. And it's those little missteps in the arc of the character that unless there's a point to why they're not reacting a certain way as they normally would based on their character arc, it's jarring and it kind of takes the reader out of the story. So I definitely recommend giving this book a read. It's very, very detailed. It goes through it act by act. So it helps you develop the arc of the character per act of the plot, which is so interesting. It really kind of, when I was starting out and I read this, it was absolutely eye-opening because I just thought, okay, we'll have this person. I made up a person. I know their name, where they live, hair color, whatever, like what they do for fun. And I thought it really nailed down that character. And then I read this and I realized like I knew nothing at all because I didn't know not just the backstory, but how they would react in particular situations, specifically in the situations I was going to put them in based on the plot of the book. So yeah, definitely give this a go. It's great. So the next book that we have is another one of those very popular books that is everywhere, and it's Stephen King's On Writing. I know that, again, some people love it, some people hate it. I personally really like this, and I'll tell you the reason I liked it. So I didn't like it for the, I guess, technical craft or that kind of advice version that people are talking about, but what I really loved about this book was kind of reading it more like a story, because it is written almost like a story. And it was, for me, reading this book was like seeing Stephen King like talk on stage about his writing career, or like a master class or something. It wasn't so much that I came away from this and I was like, oh, I can do this and this and this specifically, but I finished the book and I was inspired to write more. So if you're looking for a little pick me up, then this is a really good one. It's not very long, and it's pretty cool because there's some chapters where there's actually like he shows you like his own like scribbles and the way that he edits his own manuscripts, which is very, very cool to see in general. But there's like, it's just under 300 pages, so it's not very long, and it's just a good read to have like if you have like an afternoon on the weekend. I would read this. And then the last one, and this one I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with this book. It's called The Emotion Thesaurus. It's I have to read this because there's two names and they're long. Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi, I want to say. But yeah, this is a fantastic book. I know they have a lot of different thesauruses like this. I don't even know how many, maybe like 10, 15 or something. There's a ton. But this is the one that I got, and I find it so incredibly useful when I'm writing. So this is definitely more of like a technical kind of useful book. I reference this constantly. So basically what it is, if you have not seen it, so it's called A Writer's Guide to Character Expression. And essentially, let's say your character is feeling scared or they're afraid of something, you would look it up and you'd go to the feeling and it would tell you the definition of that feeling, physical signals for that feeling, so how they would behave physically, internal sensations, what they would feel inside, mental responses, cues of acute or long-term frustration. There's like different things like where you would cues of acute or long-term disbelief or disbelief. So like there's like if they have like a long-term version of this particular fear, what that would look like to others, what it can escalate to later, and then how it can be suppressed. So there's all these, like, let's just say, I just want to do like an example. So let's say guilt. Let's take guilt. That's a good one. Lots of people feel guilty. And most of the time you think guilty, so you're thinking they're shifting their weight a lot. They can't meet the person that they feel guilty towards, like in the eye. They can't look them in the eye. They might have a tic of some sort. And I mean, for me, like that's usually like around like 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 max I can think of on my own. But if you have like a plot, like especially like in my plots, for example, I make my characters like really crap their pants and be afraid a lot. And so there's only so many things you can describe over and over before you run out of ideas of how they would behave if they're feeling a certain way. So I referenced this for that. So we were saying guilt. So the definition of guilt, we don't need to go through it, but physical signals. So we already said averting or lowering one's gaze, turning away, shifting about, blushing, short-temperedness, consuming antacids. Never would have thought of that. Repetitive swallowing, lying, sweating, grimacing, lip biting, rubbing the nose or ears, talking too much or too fast, closing or curling one's hands inward, stuttering, glowing, frustrated. Sorry, there's like noise outside. I don't know if you can hear it. I'll try to edit it out later. A cracking voice, pulling at one's collar, destroying one's own possessions, and then internal sensations. There's a ton. I just read like a couple. Internal sensations: upset stomach, tight chest, pain in the back of the throat, loss of appetite, thickness in the throat. Mental responses: replaying what happened, anxiety, thoughts filled with self-loathing, wishing one could go back and change what happened, desiring to confess, brooding, retreating inward, paranoia that others know and are passing judgment, and inability to concentrate on anything else. And then if you were going to feel guilty for long term, that you could have a lack of interest in one's own appearance, drinking until passing out to forget, insomnia, depression, exhaustion, nightmares, crying, sobbing, hitching breaths, flight response, self-mutilation, self-loathing, attempting suicide as a way out, growing reclusive. May escalate to regret, shame, remorse, and then gives you the page numbers if you want to look those up as well. Cues of suppressed guilt: becoming excessively resourceful or helpful to make up for earlier failure, fidgeting, hiding one's mouth behind the hand, changing the subject, deflecting attention, throat clearing. It just goes on. Like this is amazing. Like what I just read right now, would you have thought of this many examples for the word guilt? Like I probably wouldn't have. Like maybe if I had a week to think about it and sit down, make notes here and there, sure, but as you're writing, you don't think of this. And so this I use all the time during the editing process. And I'll actually, as I'm editing now, the manuscript that I finished, I'm rereading it on my own Kindle right now. And I'm making notes where I want to, like if I was like repetitive in what I said. So I will actually put like TET for the Emotion Thesaurus, like in the note section. And then I'll know to go back when I'm editing and check this for a different way to describe what's happening. And it's really such an amazing resource to have to elevate your writing to something besides not just like a basic form of expression of emotion, but to more than what you can come up with. And so your writing does not feel repetitive, especially if you're writing several books in a series where the character experiences very similar things and you want to differentiate how they go through it. And actually this book goes really well hand in hand with the character art book, because you can actually go through all of these ways to express emotion and see how they change from plot, from act to act. My God. Like what? I have no words. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, see how they change from act to act, and follow your arc, and see if you can develop between these two a very structurally sound character that does not just do the same thing when they're afraid. Because, like for example, because not all of us behave the same way. Like if I'm happy, I don't always show my happiness the same way. I have different levels of happy. I could be happy to see a puppy, or I could be happy that I just won $1 million. those will be expressed in very different ways. And I mean, depends on the puppy, it might be expressed differently every single time on that as well. So like there's just so many ways that human beings interact with their own emotions. And I think it's so interesting to, I actually just read this just for the sake of reading it, and it was just so eye-opening just to read. So yeah, those are the, how many did we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those are the 7 books that I have. And actually one is not here, but I have it on my Kindle. So we'll do like a little bonus and I'll just pop it out like over here somewhere. Or here, I don't know, maybe here, whatever. But it is called the Newsletter Ninja. So if you are an author and you're looking to grow your newsletter, I highly, highly recommend this book. I think David Gongren actually recommends it too. There's a lot of people who recommend it. It is like, it's for the starter point newsletter kind of situation. So if you already know what you're doing, it still might be good to check it out and read it and implement it and see what a change it will make in your newsletter, because you will get more subscribers that actually want to read your books and readers that are interested in what you have to say, as opposed to just like people who are just there to sign up. I mean, we all sign up for things, we don't necessarily stick around, right? And if you are trying to build that community as an author, definitely read Newsletter Ninja and implement everything that's in that book. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Sorry about if there's noise outside. Like I said, we live in a big city, and I'm filming this later than I normally would, and so it's a bit rowdy and there's like traffic and cars, so apologies for that, but hopefully I can edit most of that out and it won't be too crazy. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope that some of these recommendations were helpful. I'll link all of the books I mentioned down below, including that little bonus 8 book as well. Yeah, come back next week. I think we're going to do a desk tour so I can show you guys where I write, edit, design covers, and do pretty much everything else in my life. So yeah, we'll do that next week. But in the meantime, if you're nano, good luck. Don't stress. It will be okay. You still have time to get to a point where you are happy with what you have. If you are not a nano, then good luck with the writing anyways, because you should be writing if you're a writer. And I will talk to you guys next week. Stay magical, and we'll see you later. Bye.